This just into CNN. A source tells CNN that CIA Director Bill Burns is expected to meet with Israeli, Egyptian, and Qatar negotiators in the coming days to push for a hostage deal with Hamas. This comes amid rising tensions between Israel and Qatar after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu allegedly criticized the Gulf state in leaked audio from a meeting with the families of hostages. Listen to this.
For me, Qatar is no different in essence from the UN. It is no different in essence from the Red Cross. And in a certain sense, it is even
worse,
more problematic. I was very angry recently, and I didn't hide it from the Americans, that they renewed the contract on the military base they have with Qatar.
Now, CNN has not independently verified whether that voice is Netanyahu's, and the Israeli government has neither confirmed nor denied that audio. The Qatari foreign minister, though, was quick to condemn those comments, saying, quote, "These remarks, if validated, are irresponsible and destructive to the efforts to save innocent lives, but are not surprising." We want to discuss this and more with Tal Heinrich. She's a spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Tal, thank you so much for sharing part of your afternoon with us. Was that Benjamin Netanyahu's voice?
Well, it's a leaked audio. Again, I'm not going to confirm this or deny this, Boris, as you just said. We're not commenting on such a report.
What about the substance of the criticism? Is there a feeling from the Prime Minister that Qatar is problematic and hindering negotiations to get hostages out?
Well, we welcome any kind of efforts to bring to the release of more hostages. Of course, we're working with international mediators. The United States is involved, Qatar is involved, Egypt is also involved. But there's no secret about it that any country that is harboring terrorists or terror masterminds, so to say, is problematic. Now, Qatar says that its relationship with the terror masterheads, the Hamas leadership that have been there for years and are still there, is something that can benefit the civilized world. And we say, okay, let's see it. The burden of proof is on them. Boris, you know that there are at least 136 more hostages who are in Gaza right now. Around 100 of them, we believe, are still alive. We want to see all of them returning back to their families.
To that point, Qatar, the United States, officials in the United States believe, was instrumental in getting the previous hostages released, and they were harboring Hamas leaders back then. So isn't that relationship, to a degree, beneficial?
Indeed, we saw the release of some hostages. You know, we say that what worked back in November is the combination of two things. First, the IDF pressure on the ground, the fact that we are exerting a lot of pressure, hitting Hamas hard, is what created the conditions to reach this framework that saw the release of some of the hostages. Hamas terrorists on the ground, they wanted a breather, and we said that would agree to a humanitarian pause in the fighting that will facilitate the release of hostages. We still stand by it. As you know, Hamas were the ones that broke the other framework on day 8, if I'm correct. We are continuing to pursue every possible avenue that would bring the release of more hostages. This is the combination of heavy military pressure, and also we're working diplomatic avenues behind the scenes. I know that there are a lot of reports out there allegedly about offers that are on the table. Not all of them are correct. Most of them are incorrect. But we're not commenting about the nature of these talks because we believe that it's everything is so sensitive right now. We're talking about human lives. We believe that the more quiet we keep these talks, the better chances of success we have.
Understood. I am curious about some of the criticism toward the United States. How does the Prime Minister feel about the Al-Udeid Air Base agreement, the United States extending its agreement with Qatar to keep that largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East open for another decade?
So, as I told you before, Boris, I cannot comment specifically about this leaked audio. But what I will tell you is that Yeah, we're in constant communication with Washington. There's not much daylight between Jerusalem and Washington, as some media headlines sometimes try to portray it, because at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We want to see the end to this war with Hamas surrendering, with all hostages returning to their home. We want to see the elimination of Hamas.
Sure.
And as we do this, we also want to see minimize civilian casualties in Gaza. Now, we don't have to agree on everything with partners. The United States is our best friends. We consult, we take advice, we share concerns.
I want to ask you about one specific place where I think there is pretty public daylight, but I just want to go back to the substance. Aside from the audio, whether Netanyahu said that in private or not, does he feel disappointed that the United States extended this agreement with Qatar to keep that base open?
Well, you keep asking me that same question, Boris. I told you what I can at this point. We
I'm just curious about how he
matters
feels, aside from the audio, just the news that the United States reached this agreement.
If the Prime Minister feels something and he wants to tell it to Washington, he has his ways to do so. I'm not going to elaborate on this on air.
Sure. He did say recently in public that he's communicated some difficult truths to members of the Biden administration, specifically when it comes to their insistence that Israel and specifically Netanyahu be open to a two-state solution. The Biden administration has maintained that in private conversations, Netanyahu has been open to a two-state solution, but very publicly, the Prime Minister is saying the opposite. Is this a matter of disagreement, or is this just some kind of miscommunication?
I think it's a matter of semantics, because I think CNN also quoted President Biden over the weekend telling reporters that there are different types of two-state solutions. And we say no to the type that would mean that it would jeopardize Israel's security. Peace with the Palestinians or full sovereignty to the Palestinians down the road cannot be a collective suicide of the state of Israel. This is not what peace is about. Peace that would endanger Israel, a peace that would mean that, let's say, Iranian leaders could touch base on Palestinian soil, and that Palestinians could receive shipments, weapons shipments from Iran, and have training camps of Hezbollah in the area west of the Jordan River. That's unacceptable, and that is not real peace. That would mean that you and I, for instance, will continue to have these conversations again. 1 year down the road, 5 years down the road. We said that this round should be the last round. And in order to achieve a real durable peace, the right conditions have to be in place. Gaza have to be demilitarized, and the Palestinian society has to be de-radicalized. Now, that formula that the Prime Minister was talking about, Netanyahu, it's something that he articulated in many different occasions before October 7th. It's even explicitly written in his book. And even so after October 7th, that the Palestinians should have all of the powers to govern themselves and none of the powers to threaten Israel. That's how we see things.
Tal, there are questions about whether the complete eradication of Hamas is possible, and there is some criticism even from key members of the war cabinet, including Gadi Eisenkot. He was a former chief of staff to the Prime Minister. His son recently was killed in Gaza. He said that the idea of the absolute defeat of Hamas is a fantasy, saying that whoever spreads that message is, quote, not speaking the truth. We should not tell stories. Do you believe that the complete eradication of Hamas is still possible?
We certainly believe so. When the IDF has been making great advancements on the ground, we eliminated more than 9,000 terrorists, Hamas terrorists. We arrested 2,300 and injured many more who are immobilized. So there is progress. And as we progress in the war, by the way, we see the number of civilian casualties also decreasing as we move to the more targeted raids phase of this war. And, there are different opinions in Israel. We welcome every opinion. We're having these internal discussions amongst ourselves, but we believe that it is indeed possible to bring to the elimination of Hamas as an organized war machine in Gaza.
Tal Heinrich, we have to leave the conversation there. Look forward to advancing this conversation at some point in the future. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Boris.
Of course. Stay with CNN. We're back in just moments.